Hi, I'm Scott, and I am the Simple Tecton. And this video and the following videos will be covering my Harbor Freight dust collector Frankenstein. That's right, another video about a Harbor Freight dust collector and another Frankenstein. But this is mine. So real quick, when I built this thing, the whole idea was to create a system that would fit my needs in my garage. I don't like dust, and I don't like breathing it. So I try my best to build this system to make it as efficient as possible and still maintain as much CFM at the point of the tool as possible. The features of this system: it is a Harbor Freight. It's a 70-gallon, the 70-gallon system, and I just used the motor and one of the flanges that they use to connect on the system and some of the bolts. It's connected to the Super Dust Deputy, which is the next size up from the actual shop vac. I'm pointing to it like you can see it. So it only has a 4-inch, which is all I wanted because I wanted a 4-inch hose. It has a 20-gallon plastic barrel. I personally like the plastic barrel over a metal one because it's lighter, and I also like it over the cardboard barrel. I don't know, just in my mind, a cardboard barrel. But anyway, this is pretty stout. Links below on all the things that I bought and where I bought them. I'm not getting anything from it, but I'll just show you where I got it. Additionally, I have a plenum box, and connected to it is a wind filter. Huge deal for me because I want to make sure that as it's cycling through and going back out, it's not kicking out dust. The bag that it came with, definitely not as effective about the really fine particles of dust, so I went with this. There's two cool features on here that I didn't see anybody really do. I saw some ideas, but really not quite like this. I'm not saying I created this, but this is what I did. Number one, I put a remote on mine. I didn't use the Harbor Freight one. I think Harbor Freight has one, but I didn't really, I saw it. Regardless, I put my own on there. I got a system on Amazon in which it has a really hefty key fob, and it basically interrupts the power, is all it does. Really simple. It's part of the video. The other thing is how to raise the barrel up to the Dust Deputy. I saw several ways of doing it. Some folks, they just literally just take the lid off and set it to the side and let it hang off the hose. Not my favorite idea. I do like things to have some semblance of order to them, for me personally. So I wanted to find a way to make sure this stayed stationary and the barrel dropped. DIY Tyler had his, and he put wedges underneath. And that was cool, but I wanted to get mine up off the ground because I just don't want it on the ground. I wanted to compact it as best as possible. So I created a platform in which there are cams that as they roll up, the bed raises. And I'll go over that too in one of the next videos on how I did that. So this is going to be an adventure. One, because this is my first build video or video series. And so you'll have to give me some graces, and we'll move forward and see how it goes. Let's take on the challenge. The first part of the video is actually going to cover the base plate right here that the Harbor Freight system is connected to. Then from there, I'm going to be showing how I built the framework that supports all that you see here, the plenum box and the Harbor Freight system connected to the base plate. This framework on either side is built with half laps, and then joining them is butt joints with really heavy screws and dowels. The last part of the video, I'm going to be building this frame. It's a simple frame, but I still took a lot of time to make sure I showed as much as possible. Each side of this frame is half lapped. They're half lap joints here and here at the L joint, and then they're butt jointed together this side and that side with connectors, and also the panels that I use to connect it to the wall, which is the same. I also use panels to connect the upper frame portion. And I also drilled the holes for the dowels that go through here for the cams that operate the raising and lowering of the bed. So let's go from here, see how I did it.
Like every good project, you got to open the box. I'm taking measurements of the filter here, and then I'm going to take measurements of the lid that's going to receive that filter. Then I'm going to jump over to the Harbor Freight dust collector motor, make sure I know where the holes are roughly, so it can fit on the base plate that I'm going to start building here in a second. Once I have those measurements, it's time to head over to the table saw. And you got to start out with some really good plywood cuts here, man. Everybody loves a good cutting of plywood. Here you go. If it wasn't square before, it is now. And here you go. Here's an action shot. This is the bread and butter of all woodworking videos. Action shots of plywood being cut. Yes, I use an aluminum ruler to measure from the blade to the fence. Here you go. Let's try to cut your hand off. Yeah, idiot. Put that hand back. Once I got all my pieces cut, these are the measurements that I used for that. I went ahead and centered that up. Here I'm going to be marking out where I'm going to put the glue in. So I'm measuring the perimeter of the actual top piece so that when I glue up, I make sure all the glue stays between those marks. I don't mind squeeze out, but I don't want that much. Here you go. I got my high efficiency glue spreader here. It's a piece of cardboard. If you want to know where to get that, you get your cardboard at the local box store. I'm sorry, bad joke, but that's me. These are the jokes. So go ahead and slap that top piece on there. I don't know why I rotated it, but I did. I like to use staples to secure it so that I can flip this thing over here and put some screws in the back. I put the screws in, not really as much to hold, uh, as we move on in the future, but really just a mechanical hold until the glue dries. So, I mean, we've seen cutting with the table saw, we've seen glue action. Why don't we throw in some drilling? Here you go, real drilling action right here. I did use a counter sink right there because I want to make sure that the screws that I use go below this, the actual surface so they don't interfere when I'm assembling later. The actual screws that I'm going to end up using are they're regular old black drywall screws, nothing fancy at all. I'm not worried about them rusting out. I wouldn't use it on an outdoor application, but since it's going to be in my garage, I went ahead and used drywall screws. So once I put it all together, I want to make sure that it fits, and then now I'm going to center it on there. So I'm going to take some measurements to see if I can get this thing to center on the base plate. I am definitely measure a bunch of times before I start cutting and or marking anything. So that was measure once, measure twice, 3 times, and oh, let's do a 4th right here. Ready? And measure. Once I get all that done, mark out those circles. And, I'd measured 4 times, but I want to make sure my measurements are correct again. So what I did is I measured the actual holes. Then when I got that base plate back out, I realized my holes weren't right. Um, they weren't the same as when I measured the holes when I flipped it upside down, and I measured the holes on that base plate. That wasn't working. So I decided I would just take the measurements of the holes and center them on this base plate, and make sure that they're in line, squared up. And then once I get all those holes lined out and where I'm going to drill them, the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to measure the bottom left hole with the top right hole, and the bottom right hole with the top left hole, And if that's the same distance, I know it's squared up properly. So I just used a piece of plywood. Top right hole, I used the corner, and then I made a mark on the bottom left, and then I used that same measurement, and all is good. Now it's time to drill some stuff. And here I am at my drill press. Of course, this is great action right here. I know you all are loving to watch me drill holes through 2 pieces of plywood. But what's really cool about this drill press is it's older than me, significantly older than me. This is my grandfather's 1951 Shopsmith 10ER. I restored it. Yeah, it does take up a lot of room, but I love it. I went ahead and I also used a Forstner bit on the back side of this base plate so that I could go ahead and recess the bolts that I'm going to put in the back side of this base plate because I'm going to use carriage bolts to hold the dust collector on. So I got all 4 bolts there set up and clean up that dust. Now it looks like an earthquake hit, but that really is not the case because I'm new at videoing. The reason why that's happening right there while I'm slamming those in, because I have the camera on top of my worktop. So anytime you see shaking, that's me not knowing that the vibration is affecting my camera. Who would have thought? It fits. There you go. Now it's ready for paint. We'll push this to the side. So, all right, it's time to start building the frame. I took those measurements, and now I need to build the frame for that top piece I was talking about, that top frame that was going to hold the motor and the plenum box. This is me using my crosscut sled. I've had that thing for years. I want to make sure that I get everything as uniform as possible. And at the end here, I'm going to cut these 3 together. It works out better. Here you go. I kind of just put those there to see what it would look like. Make sure it's all going to work out right. That's the top portion. Here's half laps. What I do is I do test fit with just some off cuts. Make sure everything's good. And now I'm going to start cutting the pieces. Now, I did something I shouldn't have. I started cutting on the inside. I figured that out after a while. I don't know why I did that, but you should be cutting from the outside and going towards the fence. I don't know why I started next to the fence and then went out, but here in the next one, I think it is, right here, I kind of figured it out. Say, yeah, dummy. Works out a whole lot better if you do it this way. So here's me doing it the correct way and finish that out. Never said I was perfect, but I do the best I can. All right. But there you go. So I got those cut, and I'll start assembling this top piece here in a second after I get this last piece cut. Here we go. And I bet you feel good to seeing that. All right, so I have all my pieces cut and all my half laps cut. So here I'm pre-assembling in a way, dry fitting. I am going to use screws in my dry fit on these half laps. I'm doing this for two reasons. Number one, I pre-drill and put these screws in because later on when I glue up, I can run those screws, after I pull it apart to glue it, I can run those screws in halfway, and since on the receiving side there's a hole, I can just pop it into place. See, I've already squared that piece up and run these screws in. Now I know that's square. Well, when I go to do the glue up, I use those same screw holes and everything's going to be squared up. I don't have to worry about the glue joints. Um, you know how when you put 2 pieces of wood together and you have glue in between, it's real slick and it likes to move. Well, that's what these screw holes are doing. The other reason I'm using screws and in this assembly is because later on what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those same holes and I'm going to drill 3/8 inch holes. Those 3/8 inch holes will receive dowels. I think dowels are a whole lot stronger. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Half lap is pretty strong, but I'm gonna be hanging that Harbor Freight motor off that side specifically, and so I want to make sure this thing's not going to move. So those 3/8 inch dowels are going to just make that joint just absolutely solid. So since this is basically right here, I'm taking my time making sure everything's square. So I'm making sure, um, I got my square there, and maybe I'm overdoing it. I don't know, but this is just me. This is how I do it. I don't know. Do any of you guys do that? Do you try to make sure that when you glue up, it goes together easier? Um, that's just what I do. This piece is done. I'll put it to the side. Now it's time to put that was the left side that I just finished that's going to receive the Harbor Freight dust collector. This is the right side, and it's going to be receiving the plenum box, most of the weight on that side. Um, Putting it together with screws just like the other. I square it up first, obviously. So yeah, I'm using my tabletop here and my clamps. That's a Paul workbench style table. There we have it all put together, checking to make sure it's all squared to one another. All right, so the glue up is a lot easier because I had those screws in. So here I'm gonna disassemble it, and I'm put liberal amounts of glue here. I don't care about squeeze out at all. I'll end up cleaning that up anyway, and I'm not worried about any type of finish later on because I'm gonna be painting it black. Here you go. I'm running those screws in halfway or a partial way, just enough where it pokes out, and then they line up. I'm gonna run those things in, no big deal. And these screws are meant to just hold it in place, and I'll throw a clamp on it to really get down into it. If I were to put any more pressure on those screws, because this is white pine, it would probably spin out, which I don't know about you, that's really irritating when that happens, and then you know it's not holding anything. So check it for square, and it's all good. Push that one to the side, and yep, that's right. You're gonna see that happen on the left side here also. Um, Disassemble the whole thing. I put this thing on really fast speed, try to get through it as quick as possible. But take this thing all apart. Now, like I said, with these screws already um, set in place and the holes already there, I really don't have to do a lot of thinking while I'm doing this because it's just a matter of getting the glue on and making sure it's spread evenly on each joint. I mean, are there is there anybody else out there that, uses this type of idea or thought pattern to make sure that when you go back to glue something up, it's a whole lot less, thinking about it. It just makes it easier. This last piece that I'm about ready to pop into place is it's just going to be slapped right in because of those screws. I had a little burr there, so I went and got my chisel and took that off. I was afraid it wasn't going to clamp down right. Love this tabletop. It definitely needs to be rebuilt. This Polk style workbench, I'm going to be building a monster hybrid here in the near future. I like how I can use my clamps in that thing. It's pretty amazing. As you can see, it's been really well worn. There's some problems with it, but I'm gonna fix that. So I'm gonna throw these clamps on, just one on each corner, again to really get that glue to set right. Made sure everything's square. I don't know about you, I do measure a lot and I remeasure. The other thing I like to do is even though I know it's going to be square, I still like to check. So I keep a bucket next to my bench with water in it because I clean up the glue squeeze out on projects like this. It really doesn't matter because this is going to be I'm just going to spray paint this black and it would cover it up anyway. And, I guess it is just shop furniture, but I still like to make it look somewhat neat. So this is the left side, and actually on both sides I'm doing this. I'm doing a half lap 45. I tried to collect the dust with my Milwaukee cordless saw. I'll be honest with you, as you can see, that dust collection really is not doing that great. It's because that blade is exposed and it's kicking it all out everywhere. But I sure tried. So what I do is I do several passes. I've already made the marks, the 45-degree marks, and I'm cutting within those marks. It looks like my fingers are really close to that blade, but honestly they're not. It's just guiding that right side of that saw so that I can cut as straight as possible. This is not fine furniture, um, but I'm doing my best. Stupid battery ran out halfway through, but I always keep them charged up. Here's that 45 piece. Now it looks like I've already made cuts. No, all the wood that I'm using on this project, every last piece is leftover pieces of wood, but all the 2x4s are from a shelving unit that I pulled out of the house. I had a big shelving unit inside the house, so I really don't like throwing stuff away if I don't have to. I know I'm just the only one out there that does woodworking that has a problem with throwing wood away, you know. Here you go. This is very satisfying. I don't know about you, but after you cut those pieces up to crack that stuff off, that is just absolutely satisfying, especially when they crack off so easy. Um, got all those pieces cut. Now I'm gonna whip out the old carpenter's chisel, clean that up so that it's as tight as possible when I put glue those pieces together. I really truly enjoy cleaning these pieces up. I don't know, again, it's satisfying. And what's really satisfying is when your piece is made just right and it fits perfect. Yes, I know you're going to see on the right side of the screen on my left hand, you're going to see that piece doesn't extend all the way through. There's like a triangle piece missing. You can put your comments below, and that's fine. But I actually cut a piece to fill that section. It's not going to hurt it not to go all the way through, but I kind of like to make it fit it, I, I like it to be complete. So here you go. I pop it in place. You see it right there? Yeah, I should have filled that. I should have made it longer, but I didn't. And I didn't feel like redoing it all. I don't have to screw these in. That thing popped in place, but I'm gonna throw some clamps on here. I want to get good contact, so I put two on there. Pulled the clamps off. Um, I did that to the right side also. I didn't figure you needed a video of making that again. But here's videos of me sanding. That's exciting. So I did have my camera on the tabletop. There, look there, right there. I filled that section that I didn't have it long enough for. But this is me sanding. All right, so these are the holes that are going to be receiving the base plate. On the back side of that frame, I've already drilled the holes for the bolts, and this is where I made a recess so that when I put those bolts in, and there they are, they'll recess. I didn't have any carriage bolts. I had these black bolts on hand. I like to use what I have. So I glued them in so they wouldn't come back out, and it worked out great. That was epoxy. here I am right now. I'm using my dado. I've got them. I've got these the left and right brackets. I have them clamped together. Cause see, this is where the plates are going to go that are going to be holding the whole system up to the wall. The plywood base, the plywood plates. See, making sure that it fits. I'm gonna have an upper and a lower. Um, this plywood was actually part of the same shelving unit that these pieces of 2x4 were part of, and they were already cut like they were, so that was nice. Just cutting those up, those dados. I'm gonna drop those suckers right in. All right, here's me assembling the left and right brackets for the upper piece, and really big screw to go do these butt joints. I've already glued it and just run these screws in. Later on, I'm going to be putting a dowel to the left and right of this screw. Get this thing set up. Now I'm going to put in the bottom half. It's a lot easier, a lot of finagling with that one piece. Doing this little dance around while I got it set, but bottom piece is a whole lot easier. Same concept, large screw going in the middle, and then dowels are going to go to the left and right of those screws on the left and on both sides. Get that sucker set and tighten that down. It's a little off square, so I had to beat it around a little bit, but it worked. So I didn't show you the build on that lower half frame that's going to be holding the actual barrel, but I did build those, and here I have them married up right here, and I'm cutting the dados in to receive the upper and lower plywood panels to hold it on the wall. There really was no good way to do this. I had to keep swinging around that dado blade. That wasn't my favorite. I figured out how to do it without having to swing around right there. Now I'm going to assemble that piece. Oh wait, no I'm not. I'm actually going to drill the holes for the dowels that are going to hold those cams. Use my drill press to do that. And I doubled them up for that, and I drilled the front and the back one. So I had to figure out a way to get this thing to hold up. This is me dancing around trying to figure out how to get this thing to stay in place while I'm trying to glue it up before the glue dries. I don't know about you, but when you're doing a glue up, you're trying to move as quick as possible. Finally get it to where I want, and then I go ahead and drive those screws in. Again, I'll have dowels to the left and right. I'll leave those clamps on for a little while. And here's the bottom half doing the same thing over. This completes this portion of it once this is done, and just assembling them. No painting, but everything's put together, and that all's got to dry.
Well, that completes our first video. This video covered the upper and lower frames of this Harbor Freight Dust Collection Frankenstein build. Maybe you saw something you'd like to try. Maybe it spurs you to go out and be creative in your shop and to better your foxhole. This is what I've done so far. The future videos, I'm hoping I can make it into 2. It might have to go to 3. I'm going to try to cut down the size and not be as long as this one. But the next video is definitely going to cover the lower frame and the raising and lowering bed and the cams and all that and how that works. And then we'll go from there. My name is Scott Burge, and I am the Simple Tecton. Why don't you stay tuned? Here's a couple of outtakes, entertaining outtakes of me trying to put together this first video. See y'all later. Let me clear my throat. Coffee is really getting to me. The things what other people did, I took other people's ideas. I did use some other people's. I said the same thing. I keep saying the same thing. There's going to be a lot of good outtakes on this because I'm new at this crap. It's 2 half lap frames on the right and left. And no. The first part of my video is going to cover simply this frame that covers that. No. The first part of my video covers the frame. No. Let's start again. The first part of this video that you're going to be watching covers the frame that supports the pedal box and the motor. Each frame on either side. No, I want to do it in order. All right, there you go. That completes this portion. Just a second, I'm starting to. I need some water. Better. But it's kind of as far in depth as why can't I speak it English?